right. Thank you all for joining our webinar today, considering Aderant Sierra. My name is Roger Cottrell. I'm president and co-founder of Simplex BI. I am joined with by Ivan Stokatelny, our CIO and co-founder. And today we are going to focus on moving from the Aderant Expert on-premise system over to Aderant. Just a little bit about Simplex BI for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We are a consulting firm. We focus exclusively on Aderant Expert, and our expertise is around project management, application consulting, reporting, and business intelligence. So we've helped many Aderant clients achieve greater value out of their system through the services that we offer. So today's focus again is Expert Sierra. So first, we'll just talk a little bit about what Expert Sierra is. Sierra is Aderant Expert in the cloud. So it is exactly the same system you have today that is on-premise in your at your firm on your servers, but it's moved to the cloud. It is a single tenant system, which is a technical term, but essentially it means that on the current version or version 2 of Expert Sierra, you have all of your own servers that are dedicated to your firm. Okay? Version 1 of Sierra is what they call a multi-tenant system, where you have a single server and lots of different firms accessing that server with their own database. So in Sierra version 2, everything is segregated. You have your own set of servers. So there's no sharing of servers or databases. One of the great benefits of moving to Sierra is that Aderant manages the servers, backups, all of the updates, and provides the disaster recovery systems. And what I've found working with kind of the smaller to medium-sized expert clients, it's really hard to find the expertise to handle a lot of this Aderant maintenance that needs to go on. So the clients that I've worked with, and we've taken 2 clients live on Sierra, have all found that by moving to Sierra, they gained all of this expertise and freed up their IT staff so they weren't having to pay attention to these servers. And Aderant, the Expert Sierra includes all upgrades and patches. So at any point in time, if you decide you want to have Aderant apply a patch, or you want to go through a major upgrade, you contact them and you have a live system and a test system. They will upgrade your test system. You will go through your testing process. And then once you're ready to go live on the new version, you set a date with them, and they will go ahead and upgrade your live system so that you can take advantage of all of the latest bug fixes and features of the software. And again, that service is included in your annual subscription for Expert Sierra. So some people ask the question of, well, what does the system include? What am I losing anything by going to Sierra? And the answer is absolutely not. It is, again, the same Aderant Expert system you have today, but moved to the cloud. So you have all the same customization capabilities, workflow, the ability to customize screens, etc. And when you move over to Sierra, all of your current configurations move over, all of the data transfers, just as if you were going from one version to another. So the concept of annual maintenance goes away with Expert Sierra. So your license, your current license and maintenance moves to an annual subscription. Okay? And this is an area where you need to, if you're considering Sierra, you need to take a look at the current, kind of cost of ownership of your Expert system by looking at, how much are you paying to maintain the servers? How much are you paying in annual maintenance fees to Aderant? What are your costs for upgrades? And what are you paying staff to maintain those systems? So I recommend that when you're going through this process of deciding whether to go to Expert Sierra or not, you take a careful look at the financials to determine if it's right for you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how you connect to Sierra and what the configuration looks like. And this is something that's in the process of changing, okay? And I'll explain that change. But the way Sierra is being implemented today is that each of your offices is connected to Aderant's Amazon Web Services cloud via a point-to-point VPN. So in a sense, the cloud servers become an extension of your firm's network. Again, that's changing, and we'll talk about that in a second. So what this means is that in order to be able to run the smart apps, the framework apps like Expert Billing, Expert AP, users who are outside of the office need to establish a connection to the office in order to access Aderant. Right? So there's no connection directly across the internet, say from my home office to the Aderant servers. You have to go through that gateway of going through your firm network. Right? Now, the web apps like On the Go, EA Pro, etc., will connect directly over the internet, but only the web applications will work without a connection back to the office. Additionally, certain applications like Classic or App Shell, Expert Security, Expert Admin, and Design Studio have to be accessed via a remote desktop application. So to do that, you go to a specific website and you are presented with remote desktop icons, and that's how you connect. Now, frankly, some firms do not like this configuration of having to maintain this VPN from each office to the cloud servers. So Aderant is in the process of changing that. And what that looks like, right, is that that point-to-point VPN gets removed, right? And Aderant calls this configuration, or it's more of a technical term, is the federated ID. Okay? So those point-to-point VPNs are removed, and they eliminate the need to have a connection back to the firm. Okay? And all of this access is controlled through Microsoft Azure. Now, there are certain situations where you may still need a VPN, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail coming up here. One thing I should have mentioned earlier, please feel free to submit questions to Ivan via the chat, and we can address those questions as we go along. And we will also have some time for open discussion if you have other questions you want to ask. So I'm working with a client right now who is trying to transition from this configuration with the VPN over to this configuration where they eliminate the VPN. I will tell you that this setup is not quite ready for prime time. Okay? So if you are considering going to Sierra, I would hold off on trying to implement this configuration and stick with the VPN. It's not difficult to move off of the VPN, but as I said, I really don't think it's quite ready yet. I think in the next release or two, they will have fixed some things that will make this work better. But certainly, I believe in the next 3 months, this configuration will be the standard configuration for Sierra. It'll be a lot easier to implement and maintain, and I think the security will be a little bit better without those point-to-point VPN. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the implementation process looks like to get to Sierra. So Aderant recommends a 12 to 16 week time frame to implement the software. I have actually found that time frame is sufficient to get things up and running. It does depend a little bit on any changes that you might be making to the system as you go through this migration. For example, the two firms that I worked with to move from their on-premise system to Sierra were both on a very early version of Expert 8.1, right? So they were pretty far behind, and they had a lot of new applications they wanted to implement during this transition. For example, one firm wanted to start using Expert AP. So that took us a little bit longer to get the system up and live, just because we had to change configurations, train people, etc. So as you go through the implementation, the first step is that your IT staff will work with Aderant to establish the connection to Amazon Web Services. And that refers to that VPN connection I was talking about from your offices up to the cloud. Once that's established, Aderant builds the environment. So they set up all of the servers and get things ready to go. They will then create a backup of your live system and transfer that backup to the cloud, run through the upgrade process. So you may be going from 8.1 to 8.2 or an earlier version of 8.2 to the current version. But they will upgrade that database and place it on the cloud servers. Once that's done, they turn over the system to the firm for testing. And I do recommend that you go through a very extensive testing and troubleshooting process. Anytime you're changing servers, which is essentially what you're doing in this case, there's a lot of room for things to go wrong. Various configuration settings that need to be updated. Aderant does a pretty good job of making sure those are changed to point to the new servers. But I've found there's always a couple things that need to be updated. Everything needs to be tested, build templates, check templates, printing, etc. Pretty much the same as what you would do if you were going through any upgrade. Then you also need to consider training. Depending on the setup of your system today and how you plan on implementing Sierra, you may not need much training, or you may need fairly extensive training, again, depending on the situation. Then once you're ready at the end of that 12 to 16 weeks, your final upgrade is scheduled. This is typically going to happen on a weekend. So you would cut off your Aderant Expert system on a Friday afternoon, backup would be made, and you go through that process of having the data transferred back up to the cloud. They'll run through the upgrade. You'll then do some validation, and you're ready to go live. Any questions so far, Ivan?
No, none yet. It's a quiet group.
All right, so a couple of important issues or changes to be aware of when you are moving to Sierra. First off, all end user access is via EA Pro and EA Pro Mobile. Expert Assistant is no longer available, and just the older technology, it does not run across the internet well. So everything gets moved over to EA Pro. Now, some firms are still using Expert Assistant and haven't made the jump to EA Pro. So this is where I talk about training being needed. So if your firm is not using EA Pro, you will need to configure EA Pro on Sierra and then make sure all users are trained on how to access it and how to launch their applications through EA Pro. Another big issue for some firms is that third-party software is not allowed on the Sierra servers. So there are, of course, third-party systems such as different business intelligence systems that read the Aderant data, and they are often placed on on the Aderant server or made part of that database, or at the very least, they are on a server that's connected to Aderant so they can get their data. Okay? Those types of systems are not allowed to be on the cloud servers. So they must be maintained on an on-premise server. Right? Now, from my experience, that has not been an issue. One of my clients uses a third-party business intelligence system. And what you do is you set up a linked server. So you connect your on-premise server to the Aderant server, and it's able to pull all of the data down that's needed. Another item that we ran into as we were going to Sierra, our client wanted to move to Expert AP, and while it's not a requirement of Expert AP to move your check template to DocuDraft, once you are on Sierra, it does need to be moved over to DocuDraft. Right? So a little bit of a process there to redevelop the check template in DocuDraft and get that tested and approved by the bank. And then I always just like to remind people that workflow resources can be limited at Aderant. So if you do have, file opening workflow, or you're using, a check request workflow, just make sure that you've allowed enough time for Aderant to go through that upgrade process, do all the testing that's needed, and make sure you're in good shape for the go live. And then just to look kind of side by side, pros and cons of the system. One of the great things, as I said, is Aderant maintains the servers. So all of that work that goes on today to apply Microsoft patches and updates, upgrading SQL, etc., that all goes away, and they handle everything that's related to the servers. They are going to perform all of the backups and provide the disaster recovery. So if something crazy happens, they will have the ability to get you back up and running. Also, all upgrades and patches are included in your subscription fee. So anytime you want to apply a patch or go through a more major upgrade, Aderant will take care of that, and you'll just have to do the testing. You can also have your test data refreshed as needed. So for those of you that frequently work in your test system to work on build templates or test other modifications that you're making, can be very frustrating as that data gets out of date. So Aderant can make a copy of your live system and refresh test whenever you need it. And then once Aderant gets this federated ID working properly, it is nice to be able to access the system from anywhere across the internet. And my experience is that performance is very good. All of the programs are running locally. So if you're in your home office, the applications run on your desktop and connect to the servers over the internet. Now, some of the cons, for some people, third-party software not being allowed can be a big issue. I think it's an issue that can be overcome through the linked servers, but it is something that you want to look at before you make a decision, just to understand how those third-party applications will be configured so that they can be used going forward. You also do lose some control over the servers. So you have the ability to run SQL Management Studio for those of you that use SQL. Technically, you're not allowed to make any updates to the database via SQL, although you can sign a waiver that will give you the ability to update the database. But there are also things like the report queue server. I'm sure many of you have experienced the report queue server stopping, and you have to go into Classic and restart the server. Well, you no longer have access to do that. So I've found that support has been very responsive on getting things like that restarted, but you do need to put in a support ticket for anything server related. And then, as I mentioned, you do lose Expert Assistant. And while I know it's antiquated, there are some features in there that have not made it to EA Pro yet, especially around workflow in being able to proxy and set up a delegate so that someone else receives your workflow tasks while you're out of the office. And then, it could be more expensive depending on the size of the firm. So again, you really want to go through the process of evaluating the cost before you make any decision. And I think if you look at, say, the 5-year cost of ownership for your on-premise system compared to the 5-year cost of ownership to the Sierra, that's the best place to start. And then you need to consider some of the more, qualitative aspects of, managing risk with disaster recovery and, taking away some of this work, this load on your IT staff. All right, so how can Simplex BI help you through this process? First off, we can certainly help you evaluate if Sierra is right for your firm. We can assist with that analysis on the cost, and we can also help you prepare to go to your management team to explain why you want to move to Sierra and all of the benefits. We can also help with a statement of work review and contract review, point out things that you need to be concerned with when you're moving to Sierra. And then the clients that I've worked with who have moved to Sierra have found that having an internal project manager like Simplex BI has been a huge help. So there's lots of work that we can do to help you prepare and for the upgrade. And we work quite closely with Aderant, and we'll make sure that you are in the best position possible to go through the switch over to Sierra. We also help with testing and troubleshooting, and can do a lot of the configuration that's needed for Sierra. For example, if you're not using EA Pro today, we can help you get that set up, configure all of the tiles the way you want, and modify expert inquiries if needed. And then we provide go live support. So we can be available to you as you go live, make sure that we are helping you with any issues that come up, just to alleviate any frustration that users may be experiencing. So if you are interested, we would be happy to set up a free consultation. Just talk about your individual situation. I've seen a number of you have been on both of our Sierra webinars, so I suspect that there is some interest out there, and happy to just set up a call to kind of work through the issues with you and see how you would approach this and what the best timing might be for your firm. So please feel free to reach out to me, and we can set up that consultation. You can also message Ivan now and let him know if you're interested in that consultation. And any questions there, Ivan?
We do have a question. Just the question verbatim is, have you ever worked with Spotlight Sierra? So how does Spotlight fit into the equation?
Yeah, so neither of the firms that I worked with had Spotlight, but Spotlight would be included on the cloud servers, and I suspect it should run just fine. Though hopefully it's running fine for you today. But I don't have experience with it, but it does get moved to the cloud. Anyone have any other questions? Great. Well, I appreciate you all taking the time today to learn more about Expert Sierra. Again, we'd be happy to meet with you if you want to pick our brain about how you make this change. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.